Hi, everybody. Ian Bremmer here, and a quick take to kick off your week. It is 100 days of President Trump's second administration. How's he doing? And the answer is not so well. Certainly not if you look at the polls. Worst numbers for first 100 days of any president since they've been taking those polls. Markets, of course, down. Global economy also down. So much of this self-imposed. And it's not the big picture policy ideas, the things that Trump says he wants to do are not only popular, but they're also sensible policy. End wars, secure the border, and fair trade. I mean, those running on those three planks in would work for pretty much anyone in the United States. The things that Trump is committed to. They're things that previous administrations, including Biden and the promise of Harris, had not been particularly effective at. But the implementation has been abysmal. The lack of interest in policy specifics, lack of ability to effectively execute, and the dysfunction inside the Trump teams, economy, national security has been really challenging. Tariffs, of course, so far have been the big problem. Big internal fight on what it was that Trump should do and for what purpose. In terms of the purposes of these tariffs, you had so many ideas, and a lot of them were mutually contradictory. You're meant to raise revenue and lower taxes and reshore manufacturing and balance deficits and decouple from China and improve national security and on and on and on. These tariffs were going to be a panacea for absolutely everything, and you can't accomplish all of it. And that means that all of the fights that are going on, these countries don't know what the Trump administration actually wants. And Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury, came in with one idea, and Peter Navarro, who initially won, came in with a second, the senior trade advisor in the White House, and Lutnick sort of had a third, and now Bessent is in charge for now nominative. Of course, Trump is really in charge, and Trump isn't interested in the specifics. He just wants deals. He wants wins, and he's saying, well, you guys, you other countries, you tell us what you're going to do. Well, it's not our job to tell you what we want, even though we're the ones that are expecting these deals to come together. And of course, it's happening with the Americans picking fights with all of these countries, literally everybody in the world simultaneously. And the impact that's going to have on the American economy is going to be dramatic. It's going to be long lasting. It'll be in many ways as big as the pandemic, but completely self-imposed. And even if deals were put together tomorrow, and they won't be with the Europeans, with the Mexicans and Canadians, with the Chinese in particular, you'd already have massive long-term disruption because the supply chains, the tankers, the contracts have already been severed for a period of time. And every day this goes on is a day that it's going to get worse. So that's going to lead to a lot of inflation in the United States, going to lead to a lot of bankruptcies and need for stimulus in other countries around the world. And the average voter is not going to be happy about that at all, which does help to explain why they did Liberation Day the day after elections in the US, special elections in Wisconsin and Florida and elsewhere. Ending wars. Gaza did have a ceasefire early on, but not now. And now Trump is planning his trip to the Gulf and doesn't have Israel on the schedule, at least not yet, because there's more fighting happening between the Israeli Defense Forces and what's left of Hamas. And that fighting is not something Trump wants to see. Let's see how successful he is at bringing it to a ceasefire. More important for everyone right now in the United States is the Russia-Ukraine war. And the Americans are pushing to end that war. And Trump has had some success in getting the Ukrainians to the table because they understand that the or else is their intelligence and defense support from the U.S. will be shut down as it was suspended. So they're taking it very seriously. But the Russians are not because Trump has not displayed much of an or else for the Russians, hasn't said directly that if Russia refuses to do a ceasefire, that the U.S. will provide more support for Ukraine, even though Trump advisors were saying that before he became president, has said, well, maybe there'll be secondary sanctions. But Trump is not making this very serious for Putin, and so Putin isn't taking it very seriously. And so nobody thought he was really going to end the war in a day, but it's been a couple of months of effort, and clearly now Trump and team are losing patience, and it's looking increasingly that they might walk away, which is why they're engaging with the Iranians, and why, heck, Kim Jong-un probably is going to get a call at some point, right? Because Russia-Ukraine not working so well. So much for ending those wars. And then on the border front, where Trump is having much more success in terms of policy, you don't see illegal immigrants coming into the U.S. at anywhere close to the numbers they were under Biden or during Trump first term, and that has been a response to effective U.S. policy. But there's also been overreach in terms of refusal to carry out the rulings of federal justices and even the Supreme Court. And that overreach is something that most Americans oppose. So even in the area where Trump is doing the best, his numbers are actually not as favorable as you might otherwise expect because of the dysfunction and because of the overreach of a more revolutionary Trump orientation. Look, even Doge, where I was kind of hoping in the early days that Doge was certainly going to be effective at taking a lot of the corruption and the overspending out of the U.S. government, but much less has been done on that front. There's been lots of claims of fraud, but very little evidence of actual fraud. There's been lots of claims that they were going to take $2 trillion, then $1 trillion, then maybe $150 billion, and now looks like less of that with Elon in charge of Doge. There's been, and the focus that they have had has been much more politicized, much more ideological, and anything that looks like DEI or woke, let's just remove all of it, and not necessarily do it with a scalpel, but more with a sledgehammer or a chainsaw, which means a lot of important programs get caught up along with programs that no Americans should be funding. And so overall, it's been a very challenging first 100 days. This is very much a move fast and break things approach. They are moving very fast. They are breaking a lot of things. There's not a lot of building, at least not yet. And a lot of Americans, while they feel that their government is inefficient and bloated, very few Americans want to see the government be broken further than it already is and less effective than it is. And that is so far what people are seeing. They're seeing it at home and they're seeing it internationally. And they're not seeing a lot of restraint even as mistakes are made, not only because Trump is never going to admit to have made any mistakes. Of course, that is something that you see from pretty much every president. But also, unlike most presidents, he's surrounded by people that don't tell him when he gets things wrong. And that is very different from Trump's first term, and that's a problem because you want to have people, irrespective of how loyal they are to you, you want them to be loyal first and foremost to the country, but Trump doesn't want that. He wants them loyal to him before they're loyal to the country, and that means not giving him information when he screws up because he will retaliate against them. And that's going to get you negative outcomes, I think, not just for the first 100 days, but also for a much longer period of time in the United States. And internationally, I hope I'm wrong. I certainly want to see him succeed. I want to see the country succeed. But that is not the trajectory that we are now on. That's it for me. And I'll talk to y'all real soon.